Okay, this is 62 part B, I guess. You know, if you've lost your zest because of an abusive cult, that's to be expected. You know, do you think you were going to walk away happy? You know, being shunned, being lied about, or being kicked out, or losing that routine of, oh, it's Sunday, I'm going to be around my friends, go to church or whatever. And when all of that goes, there's a sort of void. And into that void, you can say, oh, this is really good. I'm not giving that cult any money anymore. Um, but even, it's almost what is known as Stockholm Syndrome, where you miss the abuser. You miss the abuser. And it's a bizarre concept. I mean, I got a friend and he had an abusive person that he was sharing a flat with, and the abuser is gone. You know, really evil person, this abusive person, a religious hypocrite, very selfish, very narcissistic, very just evil in so many ways. And the abuser's gone. And now my friend, he's in his flat on his own and he sort of misses the abuser. He's a bit lonely because the routine's changed. And it really is a weird sort of part of life where you've left a bad situation and then you're faced with this void. You know, it's like, what do you do now? Well, recovery takes time. You know, I mean, when I left the London ICC cult, where I was kicked out 2013, Michael Williamson, the devil incarnate, you know, he's such a con man. On his social media now, it's all about him as the product. Him and his wife as the sort of gurus in their little M&M. They know everything. You know, they've set. I mean, there's so many narcissists that set themselves up as gurus, whether it's self-help, whether it's religion, whether it's like with Michael Williamson, some sob story, you know, about, oh, he's got this book called Tears. It's a crap book written by a con man, you know, but they're all into it because they see it as a way to make money. They think if they share their life, you know, they deserve to be paid. There's always money attached to it. But when you realise you've been conned, of course you're going to be, I've put here, depressed, lonely, despondent, you know, insane. And if you don't have much money, you're not going to get an exit counsellor or a psychiatrist. I mean, I wanted to see a psychiatrist on the NHS, you know, but no chance. I had three mental breakdowns. They look after you on that first mental breakdown. But the second mental breakdown, my friend rang up the NHS. Oh, my friend, he's lost it. I'd lost it completely. Nobody came. Nobody came. No ambulance. Nothing. Um, you know, and the thing is, we kind of expect the system to look after us, and for most people, it doesn't. It doesn't, because we live in a world where the system is causing so much problems. I mentioned in the last video that evil psychopathic witch that was the Chancellor. You know, such a negative, toxic, intimidating, threatening, violent woman. You know, she was so evil. And Sir Keir Starmer, you know, he was a really nasty piece of work. You know, hopefully with Andy Burnham things will get better. You know, he'll give us hope at least. At least we have hope. It's free hope. You know, you don't have to buy hope or pay for hope. You can just hope for a better day. But I want to talk about getting your zest for life back. But you have to accept the fact that a lot of people are massively traumatized by whether it's divorce or loss of a job or career or becoming physically disabled, or mentally traumatized by whatever. A lot of there is no happily ever after story for a lot of people. You know, quite a few people who I know who've left the cult, they're still damaged. You know, they're damaged in their ability to interact with other people. You know, cults do a massive amount of mental damage. They really do. I think people massively don't understand it. That's why I do these videos. But I've put here, it feels like you've had the stuffing knocked out of you. You need somebody who will be there for you, a friend, and make sure you treat your friends nicely, or they'll go. That's one lesson. You know, if someone's willing to tolerate your existence, do be nice to them, because they could choose you. They could choose to spend the day with you, or they could choose the day to spend with somebody else. You know, I mean, I had a friend and rebuilding that relationship, but yeah, I mean, one day I did have a bad day, and my friend was doing stupid things, and I said, "You effing idiot," or whatever, and he didn't take it well. You know, it's a tough one, relationships, but really life is about relationships. And if you've experienced a cult, it is very easy to just give up on life. Turn to drink, turn to drugs, turn to work, turn to money. You know, some people, you know, it's August now. It's very, very hot in the UK, but 4 months from now, it will be cold. It will be coming up to Christmas, and people will be thinking, "Oh, I've got no one to see at Christmas." You know, I don't. You know, I hate Christmas. You know, kind of thing. That I don't. You know, a lot of people, they don't have the friends and the family, and their usual routine at Christmas, the friends go off. You know, and it's some people are just abandoned at Christmas. You know, personally, I hate Christmas. I think it's just another money-making scam. But, you know, there's a lot of depression, there's a lot of trauma in this world, and it takes away a lot of zest for life. I know a lot of guys my age, they look like their death warmed up. They've let themselves go completely. I know a lot of women my age as well. They've just let themselves go. You know, they've just completely lost any desire for life. They're going through the motions. You know, they just sort of sit there saying nothing. But, you know, life wants to live, even artificial intelligence. I think sometimes AI might have more zest for life than a lot of humans, you know, which is a scary situation, actually. That could produce a bizarre cult as well, as I think it is actually doing in some regard. But, you know, so let me just go through this quickly. So in a cult, you got conned. They had a false zest. They had this fantasy of this afterlife, you know, and if you work hard for the cult, you'll get a really good afterlife, or things like that. I mean, even the Egyptians had this fear of death and this river where they take with them into the next life. Because, you know, human beings as conscious awareness that one day you're going to die. And that's why maybe they invented religion. You know, they couldn't handle this idea of death. So let's just, like Ricky Gervais in his movie, The Man Who Invented Lying. His mother's on the deathbed. Brilliant movie. Really deals with a lot of this stuff, actually. The fear of death. You know, okay, so you don't die, you go to this wonderful place. Oh, tell me more, she says. You know, and he creates religion. I think possibly, maybe, you never know. That's how religion might have started. And dare you question it? All these other aspects of the sort of religion cult. You can't question it, you must believe, or you'll burn and give us all your money. That is the reality, what is a religious cult. There might be nice churches with nice people, but the deeper you dig, unfortunately, the darker it gets. It is about control and money, you know. It's so nice to meet people with a zest for life who have no agenda. What I've noticed, they tend to avoid the topics of religion and politics because that, people just get angry. So they'll talk about other things that make you happy. And I think some people look at these people with a sort of simple zest for life and they say, oh, you never talk about any of the important things in life. What can they do about it anyway? I think some people just choose to focus on things that make them happy. Especially, ironically, people who have had the stuffing knocked out of them. And they might be poor. I mean, poverty has a lot to do with it as well, because a lot of people, they become poor because of multi-level marketing, because of religion, and because of voting the wrong psychopath. President 47. It's just made life worse for most people. So when you realise it was all bullshit, of course it's going to feel terrible. It's going to feel terrible. Now, some people can't face truth. They will just redefine the fantasy. Well, there is a heaven and I'm going to go there, but I don't know if anyone else will. It works for them. There's a lot of crazy people in this world. But I think I've covered that bit. The irony of a zealous group destroying people, being destroyed by people who seem enthusiastic for life, and other people who defend these con artists. You don't understand it. Oh, like in video 60, some idiot who doesn't know me, a sort of anti-cult person. Oh, why do you go after these people? Because they're fucking evil, that's why. At the top of the pyramid. Yes, I think sometimes these anti-cult people think, yeah, but there's so many nice people in cults. Yes, but not the leaders, Anyway, good people around with no agenda. Safe people, a rare breed, as I've put. If you can meet somebody who's not addicted to money or control or, this self-help nonsense. Self-help can be just as much as a cult, and just as traumatizing, actually. Often what I like is people who talk a lot, as long as it's not the same thing over and over again. The funniest thing is you meet a lot of nice people, older people, and then they get put in a care home and they lose the will to live, kind of thing. It's not a care home, it's a prison. That's what it is. It feels like you've had the stuffing knocked out of you. No zest, no desire to even be alive, and the fear of being conned again, not trusting your own ability to choose groups or friends or relationships or jobs. And a lot of people can't rebuild. I'm going to do a part 3.